Hello and welcome to the Blytheway Business News. Today we're joined by Mark Warde-Norbury, Chairman of Marechale Capital. Marechale is the only independent small cap investment banking boutique in the UK. Mark, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Megan.
So this is your first time on the Blytheway Business News. So can we just start by having a bit of a background on Marechale, a brief history and the key members of the team?
Yes, of course. So Marechale Capital is over 20 years old now, and it started its life out as a small cap stockbroking business called St Helens Capital. We had a successful run, and then we were approached and we ended up selling the broking business back in 2008, 2009, which was quite fortuitous because it coincided with the market crash at the time. We were quoted on AIM, and we kept our quote, and we kept our broking permissions, and we remained FCA authorised. But we effectively took the rump of the business that we didn't sell, and I met and linked up with a gentleman called Patrick Booth-Clibborn and merged what was St Helens Capital into his private equity funding business, and we renamed the business Marechale Capital, and that was about 10 years ago. And since then we've been developing the business, and we've created quite an interesting niche for ourselves. We remain quoted on AIM, and the main activity that Marechale does is find interesting business opportunities. Historically, that's been in the hospitality sector primarily, but we've also done quite a bit in renewable energy. And what we do is we advise businesses, we do the corporate finance, and we raise the funding and help them to develop the growth of their business by introducing them typically to family offices, high net worths, and small institutions who provide both debt and equity funding. So we're effectively a private equity broker. What makes us different is that, first of all, we find quite a lot of opportunities that do not generally hit the radar and are not available for people outside of the type of environment that we're operating in. So we think we find and we do due diligence on some very interesting businesses, and those businesses are developing quite nicely in our portfolio. The opportunity for shareholders within Marechale is that you have a portfolio collection of investments that we've worked with, which we participate in as a business through warrants and equity. And by being quoted on AIM, our shareholders have an opportunity to share, if you like, in that portfolio approach with tradable shares. So that's by way of background. The main people who operate in the business are Patrick Booth-Clibborn, who I just mentioned, who is the chief executive, and his background is he's been in the city for around 30 years, and he's got a lot of hospitality industry experience, both in pubs, hotels, and restaurants, as well as working in corporate finance in the city. Howard Flight is our non-executive director. He's now Lord Flight. He again has a wide-ranging experience as our non-exec, both in the UK and abroad. He was also a Conservative MP. He set up a fund management business, which he sold, and he is our non-exec and is now been elevated to the House of Lords. There's myself as the chairman, and my background is that I worked at Fleming's for 14 years, which was a merchant banking business, and then I set up what was then St Helens Capital.
Great, thank you very much for that. Can you give us an example of some of the companies that you work with?
Yes, sure. When I've mentioned that historically we've been involved very much in the leisure sector, so to give you some idea, or leisure and hospitality sector, so to give you some examples, we were involved with the Wolsey Group, which is a hotel and restaurant group in London. We also were the advisors behind the funding for Hawksmoor, the steak restaurant group, and we delivered a 10 times return for our shareholders in that. Also on on the renewable sector, we've been involved in a number of businesses, both in solar and wind. And more recently, we've branched out into some of the more interesting new technologies and new businesses coming out of renewable energy, and some technology. But those are our sort of principal areas of focus.
Okay, and you've kind of mentioned renewables, hospitality. Can you just tell us a little bit about those sectors and how you find operating them, especially kind of over the last year or so?
Well, it's been an interesting time, and clearly the pandemic has created all sorts of issues that we've had. Both Marechale and our management teams of the businesses that we're involved with have had to contend with. Completely across the board, all our clients have actually performed very well. I mean, clearly it's been a year of two halves since lockdown has been eased. The businesses are booming, so we're very pleased. And in fact, a lot of our hospitality businesses are seeing quite a lot of opportunity in the market. So, and we see that increasing in the future. So an interesting space to be in, both in pubs, restaurants, and indeed in hotels. In the renewable sector, again, obviously less affected by the pandemic, and we've got some historic businesses that are coming through very well. We've got one in particular that's involved in biogas, and that's performing strongly.
Great. And moving on from that, you've just released a good set of results. Can you tell us a little bit more about these, please?
Yes, of course. So, yeah, we're pleased with our results, and we've made a major step forward, both in terms of profitability and in terms of our balance sheet investments. And I think that the key is that, well, first of all, we've had a number of our companies that have come to fruition and are coming through now, and we're seeing the fruits of our activity, if you like, over the last few years. We did a small funding round at the beginning of this year at Marechale and raised some new equity, and we've been deploying that to increase our exposure in equity to a number of the businesses that we're involved with. So we're starting to see the benefits of that new strategy starting to come through.
Great. And what are the future plans for Marechale? Any opportunities you can tell us about?
Well, the key for us is that we're always on the lookout for good opportunities. We're very excited about some of the clean energy opportunities that are coming out of the renewable sector, but there's a number of businesses in the new clean tech and the net zero market that's starting to develop interestingly. And we're on the lookout for good management teams who we can work with and introduce to our investor base or family offices. And those, I think that's the main thing that excites us. The opportunity for investors is that we, in Marechale, is that we have a portfolio of quite interesting opportunities and joint ventures with other businesses where we get exposure both through we not only get our corporate finance fees, which is a cash fee, but we also get sweet equity or founder shares, and also warrants in the companies, and they can be incredibly valuable. So we're excited by those prospects.
Great, thank you very much. It's been really interesting to get an overview of the company, and hope to speak to you again soon.
Well, thank you, Megan. It's been a pleasure.